You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way. This week, the party sit down to talk about uses for 5e, D&D in general as a system, and perhaps some alternatives if you're stepping outside of the genre of fantasy. Well, Scarr does. I'm not sure I was much help. Anyways, here we go.
Welcome to the party. I'm Shane, also known as Scarr.
I'm Owen.
Oh, I had something for this. I'm still Savage.
Oh, okay. That's fine. No, it's fine. Don't worry, it's decent. It'll do.
It's been a hot minute.
Speaking of things that'll do, we are here to talk once again about 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. And I'm realizing now as I start that I have to go into maximum defense mode because we have Owen on the show and Sean is not here to cause a necessary matter-antimatter reaction. So me and Mick have to be very kind to Watsy's current baby.
They don't need to be looked after.
I'd be perfectly happy to watch it all burn. It's been that kind of week. Oh wait, it's only Monday.
And there go the subscribers.
Alright, we're going to talk about what you should use 5th Ed for. You know, propping open a door, lighting a fire. And what you really shouldn't. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah. This is sort of spurred on by in the last couple of months there's been something has clicked inside Hasbro licensing, and the 5th edition rule set has suddenly started proliferating wildly beyond the normal D&D and D&D supplements range that it was currently contained to, and we've had a bevy of modern and superhero takes on the material suddenly explode out onto Kickstarter and previews and Drive-Thru RPG and such. So I think it's probably time for us to not push back so much as put define the borders and where things stand. So I hate to put you on the spot, Owen, but maybe we could hear from you. What do you think that 5th Ed D&D is good for?
Oh, well, that's a really difficult one. Like, from a kindling point of view, any kind of very treated paper is... it's a dicey proposition. I mean, because you get the glossy kind of feel, it just doesn't burn as well as, like, old newsprint. So, I mean, in terms of starting a fire, like... mixed blessings at best, but in a pinch, you could probably start a fire with it. Okay, I don't like 5th Ed much. I think it is a very loose RPG that was successful by accident, a bit like the producers, and is kind of been, if I had to compare it to a sports person, it'd be Floyd Mayweather, kind of like, the sort of, known wife beater, massive gambler, always dodging, always ducking, just doing enough to get by. That's kind of 5th Ed, and it's monstrously successful. So, what do I know about, making good games? More or less how I look at it is it was very successful, largely by accident. If you talk to any of the WotC people, did you expect it to be this kind of success? The answer is no. They'll often play it off as, oh no, it was low-level marketing from us. It wasn't. Streaming got big. It was there with the right group of people in Critical Role, which exploded it, brought it to a new audience, and the new audience picked it up because for your entertainment dollar, RPGs are quite low cost, and gave them avenues of play and expression that people found fun, and it's kind of exploded from there. I don't think it's a very good RPG. From a mechanics point of view, I'm deeply unimpressed by it. People talk about it being a good starter RPG. I actually don't think it is. I think it mostly teaches you bad lessons all the way along about what to do, what a GM should expect from a rule set and so on. I think it works really off very low expectations for people in terms of balance, in terms of, okay, yeah, sure, all these classes are terrible, but yay, they're fun to play. And the rules never get in the way. Sometimes we have the best session, we don't roll dice once. If you're doing that, that's because your game's mechanics are inherently uninteresting to interact with. So your game's bad. So that's why you're having fun. You're having fun role-playing, but not interacting with the mechanics because the mechanics are bad. Because if the mechanics were good, you'd be playing the game and go, wow, these mechanics are amazing. There's a puzzle unfolding here before my eyes that I'm starting to understand and can start to action in-game. This is incredible. And you get none of that with 5th Ed. You might cast some spells. That's the most interesting thing you'll ever do, which is why all of the good archetypes for classes are, oh, this class now gets spells. Everything else is bad, to various flavors of bad to terrible. So yeah, I don't think much of 5th Ed, and I think people seeing an overcrowded marketplace and going, me too, and going, oh, let's dive in and let's just make a copy of 5th Ed. We'll put a skin, a Hellboy skin on it, or a superhero skin on it, or a Transformer skin, or a G.I. Joe skin on it it's shockingly lazy. It will not lead to good games. It will lead to kind of a tepid, warmed over kind of McDonald's style bad fast food experience that will ultimately corrupt and destroy everything it touches.
Well, I knew,
so, yeah, not a fan.
I knew if I let him go long enough, he'd actually hit the right answer. D&D 5th Ed has proven to be an excellent framework to hang a licensing agreement on. And we've had it with Rick and Morty, Wendy's, well, not quite, but it was close. It was G.I. Joe and Transformers announced. We've seen Stargate have just closed out a Kickstarter for a new 5th Ed based Stargate game. So yeah, I think I'd have to agree with Owen. It's been licensors' dream. It's proving to be loose enough to be able to be molded to a few different kind of fantasy and quasi-fantasy settings. And I think that's where it probably finds its strengths. It's kind of built with a kind of relatively robust 6-stat system, and then you've got spells and classes on top that most people can get to grips with fairly quickly without getting too bogged down in whether it's balanced or mechanically interesting to the point of being a European board game. What about you, Scarr?
I didn't want to be thrust into the role of absolute defender because Sean is just so much better at that than I am.
Hold on, I didn't say any of those are bad things. Like, if
that's fair, yeah. I've sort of come to the conclusion that D&D's... It's okay. Saying that its place is to be the market leader is way stronger than I want to put it, but that by dint of collapsing drunkenly into the place of market leader, that it has removed the obligation to be high quality RPG fare, but also gained the obligation to sort of pass things along, and we can have another episode about branching out from 5th Ed and how it does the rising tide lift all the boats, but that's another episode. I think we're probably better.
It is part of this episode as well, because we should mention things that D&D just doesn't do well and where to find a good alternative.
That's where we're going.
Cool.
But I think we should probably start of I don't question the economics of making a 5th Ed clone for 1 million licensees. For me, the question is entirely in the why would that be a good or bad idea from a game design perspective, and asking the question of, well, what about the 5th Ed system? What type of game does it imply? And this is one of those things I think a lot of 5th Ed fans do not have a good frame reference to enunciate, because like, oh, it's just D20s. You add your dice, you add proficiency. It's so simple. And the simplicity is not the answer. Like, the fact that it is easy to understand does not explain, well, that means it can be used for everything. So I feel like I want to get to grips with that as my jumping off point. Or does anyone want to stop me from treating this with some respect and fairness?
Well, I'm going to keep dodging in and out of traffic on this one, because I think the game, presenting it to people, it's easy to grasp, but understanding it, like, you get a grasp and then quickly discover that, oh, you're going to need to do a whole bunch more grasping before you get a handle on it. You can sort of grab it very quickly and pull it to the table, but getting players, oh man, I'm mangling this, getting players actually proficient in playing D&D of any edition has become, it's probably not as tough as it was back in the high priest of optimization days, but you're still running into a lot of, you're going to roll a character, and if you choose the wrong class, race combo, and the wrong stats, you're probably going to have a bad time. So, like, I have to agree with Owen on that front. It's not the best. It's probably not the best game to start people on.
It really is not.
I just don't want to. I don't want to crack open a copy of Mouse Guard.
It's simple compared to 3.5, or you can argue fourth. I actually think fourth is actually better for new players, but it's simpler in some ways and it is much more complex in others. In terms of building characters, it's fine until you ask your players to select spells. At which point the characters who don't have spells, they go, what? And the other characters are going to be like, wow, there's a lot of these, and they're not organized in any way that you'd call organized. Like, how do you find a spell in D&D, in 5th Ed, the PHP? How do you find it?
You throw the PHP away and you start looking it up on Roll20.
It is a terrible book for finding spells in. It really is. Like, they're not organized to be easy to find. You have to know the name of the spell you're looking for. That's how you find what your spell in thing. It's not good from that point of view. And Are bonus actions equally important to every class?
No, I've rolled up a ranger the other day, 2-weapon fighting ranger, and my word, this is going to be I'm going to enjoy playing it from the character and the kind of fantasy perspective. I know mechanically it's just not all there. So
you can take one of the broken subclasses in Xanathar's Guide.
I've taken one, and the bonus action thing you still run into. So back to Owen.
Yeah, people say it's a good intro because people watch Critical Role and then want to play it. That's not a good intro. That's just something a lot of people are knowledgeable about and want to start playing from. Once you go into the D&D cul-de-sac, it's very, like, why do people have brainworms about, like, 6 stats rated from 3 to 18 is some great insight into the human condition or some fabulous mapping of the real world?
Should make it 4.
You know? Like, whew. They're 6 of the most arbitrary stats that have ever been chosen. And it's just that they've been hard-coded in RPGs as kind of something we sort of do. Like, what is the difference between strength and dex?
I think we're probably circling a train.
We are, but I'm just making the point that it is not an exceptionally good intro. You're
right, okay.
Like, if I was going to pick a good intro game, it would be something like modern day Call of Cthulhu, because that is instantly explainable to people in a much quicker way.
Gumshoe or different?
I would actually go for basic Call of Cthulhu, because you can say you have a percentage chance to succeed, and you can just look at it, and the players understand I have a 70% chance. Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, you get better at stuff as you do it.
And, like, the stats are still rubbish, but at least stats aren't that important. It's you're actually looking at your skill percentages most of the time. And your stats now are multiplied by 5, so you actually see a percentage chance there as well. So at least you're like, okay, I can kind of understand this. That's actually a good in-ramp game.
Okay.
Because it goes, okay, this is core to thing. Whereas with D&D, it's simple compared to other D&D. Yeah. But you need a little bit of RPG know-how before you start.
Let's steer back onto the road and actually discuss given all of its limitations, and it's starting to buckle under my opinion. Yeah. What will we actually use this thing for? My short answer is high fantasy in one of the well fleshed out settings and not much else. Scarr?
I want to get into the weeds in this one. I really do.
Go for it.
Oh, well, I'm going to ask you. Okay, so I've broken the puzzle down into 3 categories: rules, context, and content. And when I'll go those in reverse order because, it breaks out way differently that way. For content, my immediate thought as an example on this is the Monster Manual. An entire third of the game is their interpretation of hundreds of both mythological and bespoke monsters of different kinds to give player characters all kinds of options of things to fight, interesting ways to get killed in caves, things to fight in the mountain, things to fight in the forest. That's an expectation of content that I don't think is just as equally transferable to general role playing as people think it is. Like, not every game needs a monster manual. Not every game would even be served by having one because it would take away. Like, Call of Cthulhu might need a monster manual, but that's more because people love going through all of Ashton Clark Smith's work and pulling all the monsters out of that. But what I guess what I'm saying is D&D comes with an expectation that everything will be borne out. There'll be a huge amount of stuff worked out for you, and that doesn't suit every RPG. That, especially one where, say, the players get an input on world building, it's very difficult to marry that with, here's a 300-page book full of, high glossy art and stat blocks. The next one was context, and that's, when I think about this, I'm thinking about stuff like the list of skills that they would have, like what skills. Like, you have this supposedly simple system of proficiency in different tasks, and you could argue whether proficiency in a glass making set is supposed to be anywhere equivalent to proficiency in using your eyes to see things. But I'm talking about the context of, well, this is the list of things that are relevant to a character. This is what a character should be thinking. Like, broadswords is important. That it is important that broadsword proficiency is a thing. It is not important that you differentiate between the glaive guy's arm and the halberd, and it's not important that katanas are different from great swords or whatever. I guess what I'm saying there is, I'm not sure it's a very specific level of, we're defining this is the amount of things that could be important to a character. And I don't think it can be infinitely scaled. Like, I don't think you could have, say, a modern investigation game where you want to have breakout, crime scene investigation versus, talking to people at bars versus, examining fingerprints, all of which are potentially important skills, but I don't think you can get the same effect by just giving everyone twice as many skill proficiencies.
So, pick the sweet corn out of this for a second and just tell us what are you going to use 5th Ed for?
I was already starting on my list. Well,
okay.
I will happily use 5th Ed for a fantasy game.
Yeah, makes sense.
Not every kind of fantasy game, though, is the thing. It's like, if I wanted to go for like a deep dungeon crawl, I would probably be cracking out some lighter OSR system and putting that to the task of managing your flasks of oil.
That's funny, because I think that's actually one of the last places 5th Ed is suited. Like, Owen was asking the question, like, why dex versus strength? And the reason is because down in the trap-filled dungeons, that's actually the split. That's kind of what you want to check against. Because remember, the old saves were saves versus death, poison, wands, that kind of stuff. Like, how long can you hold your breath? How long can you keep the walls from crushing you with your strength? Or how nimbly can you avoid the poison darts with your dex? Like, that's what Gygax and Arneson were kind of writing for. The exploration dungeoneering pillar has fallen away massively, I think, in terms of how people think about D&D. But it's actually all still there in the stats. Just, it's being applied. It's like someone using an axe to hammer in a nail at this point. It's not being used correctly, and you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If I'm running a fantasy game in 5th Ed, it's going to be a very not swashbuckly, but very flashy thing. It is going to be a very hero focused. You're not going to be, 5 guys with 3 swords and a dagger between you, and a magic book with wing it stapled in on a coffee napkin. Like, you're going to start off as being a larger than life weirdo, and you're going to end as an even larger than life weirdo, but you're also not going to be like a king of the universe or something, because there's no impetus for that kind of play in the game. Even if you buy certain Kickstarter products or whatever, or find a homebrew on the DMs Guild, the game naturally pushes you towards having big flashy encounters where you beat monsters with cool abilities, and then you solve puzzles with cool abilities, and you beat out a weird overcomplicated social encounter with special abilities, and it's going to go on like that. And I don't think you're going to avoid that. Whereas, if I'm getting down to the dirt, I'm probably going to be, are you going to be a start 0 to hero journey? I'm probably going to, get out Wolfrip or some Rules Light OSR hack, or Savage Worlds even. Even Savage Worlds, which is, you start you off pretty high up. I wouldn't think that it's as you are the big dogs as a 5th Ed game was.
Fundamentally, your problem is, for me, for 5th Ed, is you're immediately in hit points. And that's going to be your hardest problem to sort. Hit points are this really kind of weird construct where you get hit by attacks and you take some damage, but it's not enough to impair you at all. It's you're grand, you're non-functional. That immediately sets up a particular type of game. Now, what are hit points is a completely other argument, but you're into, the second you go into 5th Ed, you're into hit points. And you're going and ballooning hit points at that. Yeah. So you have to handle that. And that's once you do it, you've committed to a particular style of game in which it is quite difficult to die. Now, you can mod your dying rules, but even without that, like, what damage do guns do in a 5th Ed game?
About the same as a sword.
Well, why are they in a 5th Ed game?
But if you're playing Stargate, if you're going to play Stargate with it, all of a sudden you've got guns in a thing. Now, now you're shooting somebody, and is it that you're not hitting them, or you're hitting them, but the bullets aren't strong enough to get into them, really? Like, what's going on?
Hold on, that's right at the root of the question that we started this episode on. What would you use it for and what wouldn't you? Definitely not anything with shooting bullets. But you could say the same about the arrows, You
could say the same with the swords.
Yeah, but lots of games with hit points.
They do.
So
they do.
It's not exactly a unique problem to 5th Ed. I'm still waiting to hear good ideas. My view on this is there's actually a very narrow band of games you should be playing with 5th Ed rule set, and they probably all have the WotC D&D logo on them somewhere.
The only thing I would run with 5th Ed is if I was asked to run a big RPG event at a convention and I was told to make it as broad-based as possible, I'd run 5th Ed. That's the only thing I would use it for. If I was running a fantasy thing at home, I'd run Pathfinder 2nd Ed. If I was running anything else, if someone said gritty, I'd be Wolfrup. If someone said, no, we want gritty but not set in Wolfrup, I would go looking for a bespoke system. I would look for something that...
13 days.
If I want to run Conan, I would be like, Conan 2D20, that's a great system. If someone said, I want to run Transformers, I'd be like, well, there's no good mech system yet, so I will look and see if I can maybe use Lancer for it or something.
Lancer would be pretty
but I
good.
would be... I would, like... How many spell slots is Ratchet going to get? Like, how many heals is he going to be able to prepare?
What's he going to do with Rope Trick?
It's... Like, what is it going to be like? Is it just going to be, you make some skill checks, stop being an asshole? It's like, you're putting this in the 5th ed block. One of the points about that is hit points and repair. Now you can kind of go, okay, the Transformers are really tough. That's why they have so many hit points, and you fix them. And I'm like, okay, that kind of replicates some Transformer setting, but not really. Like, depends what type of Transformers you're running. Like, how dangerous is the combat? Is it dangerous because people don't hit each other? Or, like, because if you get shot in Transformers, often they get really badly hurt. So it's often like, well, don't get shot. Some of them are really tough, but only some of them. So, I mean, what... You're running this game, you're going to go... Like, the reason to run 5th ed is popular. There is no... I can't see many arguments for this provides a mechanically superior experience, so we should run it with this. And that's the reason I pick a system. So I'm not very bullish on it, because I don't think it does many things very good. It on-ramps people, and it's difficult to off-ramp people off it, which some people would see as an advantage. I don't. I think diversity in playing different RPGs is the fun part. You know, there's some great board games. I play different board games though.
Yeah, that's what sort of way I was trying to get around to the rules of D&D, but and what kind of game they imply that a person who hasn't gotten into RPG game design would not see, and therefore think, just roll d20s is the problem. But do we want to do a big breakdown of the...
I don't know the time is with us in that, but could you, instead of showing us all your workings, could you give us your conclusion? Like what?
The workings is the way to get to the conclusion.
I know, but you can present your conclusion without showing us every step along the way. And like I said, time is always a beast. So, like, cut to the chase here. What is it you think you should be using this for? And what not?
I already answered that question.
You addressed little bits and pieces of it. Give me the holistic, the overview.
No, I did. I said I would do it for a big flashy game where you're a big damn hero and you're doing everything with your special abilities.
So D&D.
And what?
As written. It's just...
Well, oh god, I mean, do you want to start the argument over what is D&D? Because you want to get all the OSR people out with knives, because that's how you get the OSR people.
I think we're largely in agreement. And the OSR, look, all of those guys are basically D&D with some of the safety features hacked off, and some decals stuck on the side. Like, I don't really consider any of those guys to be much different from D&D as it stands today. Some of them are just sort of historical wargamers. They want to feel like they felt when they cracked open Second Ed for the first time, but it's still a 6-stat system. It's still skills and saving throws and hit points and all that. They're basically, I'd lump them all the granddaddies and all the grandkiddies today, all in the same boat. It's yeah.
I can start naming examples of RPGs that I would recommend instead of things, but I'm not sure. How will people listen to the argument, is what I say, is if we don't explain. Well, maybe they don't want explanations, but if I say, instead of using 5th Ed for Hellboy, you should use ESO-terrorists, or you should use our R&D friend Donna, I believe, recommends something called Apocalypse Keys.
Oh, yeah.
So
that is definitely the direction we should move in now to close out.
Yeah, but saying, can we articulate why it's better? We can say it's better till the cows go home, and you usually do, but can we truly explain to someone what they're missing out by using 5th Ed instead of something like a Gumshoe system or Apocalypse World system?
I think we can probably give a brief overview.
Okay.
So, ESO-terrorists, go.
Go ahead then.
What's the sell for
Nick, have a
okay.
brief.
Well, if anything future or sci-fi based, I think you've got to land on whether it's going to be cyberpunky or space opera. And I really like the Genesis system for some of that stuff. I think there's a lot of...
But why?
Why? Because it does shooting and armor and things like that pretty well, and it has lots of rules for...
But hit points
tech.
Can do shooting and armor.
Oh, I think we've already established that they have a very hard time.
Yes, but I'm being facetious, as you may have noticed.
No, I got that, but you did ask me why. So I'd recommend something like that for that sort of stuff. If it's dark fantasy stuff, I think we are well served. Like 13th Age has popped out. What's the index card dungeon system? It's sort of a big old breakaway from what, well, it's perhaps even looser, but a good way of doing something very flavorful without getting too into the mechanics, which takes us to more of an onboarding experience. I hear mouse guard get thrown around a lot, but I don't like furries. What else? Some people still like to play Cowboys and Indians, for which I cannot recommend anything else but either Deadlands for the wacky variety, or if you want a straight up simulationist, then Aces and Eights, although it is quite mad. But anyone who is looking at how to make their system thematically fit their game should look at Aces and Eights. Lancer I do like for mech stuff, but I don't like the setting. So maybe Transformers, Lancer, something like that, or the old Heavy Gear cartoon or something like that, if you wanted to play one of those. Investigative stuff of any stripe, be it Slough House or Len Dennington, Ipcris File stuff. I don't know what those are. Ipcris File. That would be the place to go with Gumshoe, obviously. It's the best.
Obviously, yeah. You said that's sort of my problem, is that it is obvious to us. Like, we don't even need to. We would just, sit here around the virtual Discord discussion table and go, yes, very good. Snifter brandy. Yeah, but like, how do we explain to someone who has never seen anything but 3d6, 46 drop the lowest, and a d20 for all those problems? How do we explain to them, how Gumshoe just does investigation better than rolling investigation will? Like, how do you just say words with him until he gives up?
I'd say I'd probably direct them to one of our bracket fight episodes where we've discussed a lot of these titles extensively. So you'll be sure to check the back catalogue, folks, if you want to hear more in-depth takes on some of these games and others and why they're good at what they do.
Absolutely. So, yeah, look, Shane, you're arguing, okay, how do you explain this to people who've only played 5th Ed? The answer is context sensitive depending on what they want to play, right? So if someone comes to me and says, I want to play X, I will say you should play this. And if I'm asked why, I will give specific examples about that rules. But I need a specific example before I can answer the question. There's not just one reason, I'm not one reason why I'm not going to start with 5th Ed is terrible and you shouldn't play it. I will start with...
Hold on, yes you did.
I did, but that's just that is literally for the amusement value of it. It's an effective arguing technique. It's not. So what I would do is I would say, okay, this is good for this reason. You want this, you want this. I would ask questions like, do you wish gritty combat where people can die in 1 or 2 bullets? Okay, well, not for you. This 5th Ed is not for you. Do you want a big investigative focus? Okay, well then you want mechanics to support that. 5th Ed is not for you. And you bring in something and go, this is what I would use instead. You want to play a Star Trek game? Well, this 2D20 Star Trek is a great example. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of why this is good. And it simulates the genre. When you play it, it feels like you're in an episode of the show. That's why you should play it. And here's the reasons the mechanics reinforce that feeling. And I would begin like that. You have to be constructive about what you're doing. Purely destructive is fun to listen to, but it's not actually constructive in talking to somebody. I would start with that.
I guess that is fair, and I just try to be constructive all the time. But we are here to entertain the listeners as well as inform them, I guess. All right. So now that we've already alienated 90% of the RPG player base, how will we recommend these Lost Souls? Let's start with the big one, My Little Pony. They've made the wonderful decision to stop with the currently existing My Little Pony RPG and make a 5th Ed My Little Pony RPG for some reason. Damn. How can we save them from this doom?
I don't know.
What is the My Little Pony RPG about? Friendship? What do you want to do with it?
Magic?
Is it about friendship? Okay, then you should be probably playing a game that is all about friendship and interacting with your other players.
Toon?
That's what you should be playing. That is not 5th Ed is not that game.
No,
it really isn't. It is not about bonds of people and playing off your bonds of people and then maybe combining your powers to do magnificent things. That is not 5th Ed. Really isn't. So you want a game that is about interrelationship stuff. If that is what you wish to play, or you want a really silly game where you want to play ponies and That's again not Fifth Ed. It's not an inherently comedic game. You can play it as comedic, but it doesn't have any mechanics to support comedy. Dying is dangerous and stuff. You have to change a bunch of stuff before it starts to fit in.
Let me ask you
So
guys
I
a
wouldn't
question.
recommend it for it.
Would I be right in saying we're all pretty much unified in a sort of a slightly disappointed horror at the kind of licensing choices that are now being made around Fifth Ed? Like Stranger Things wasn't a terrible stretch, but then we got Rick and Morty, and we've had now we have announcements around Transformers and My Little Pony and all this. Like, is that something that we're just all why this, why now?
I think someone saw that 30 Rock sketch about vertical integration and took it seriously.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's what that's what they're going. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this thing, and everything comes out through the lens of Fifth Ed, because hey, we want to make some money, and Magic is staggering a bit, and D&D's our other big license, and we really haven't monetized this effectively enough. So let's reduce
And
a bunch of skin stuff.
They don't want to spend money on game designers. They
Yeah.
want to just. They've made a system. It seems good. Let's keep using this.
Well,
Okay.
they made a system that's dominant. Is it even being released by WotC though? Isn't it some other company that's literally licensing the IP, then
I'm
also
pretty sure-
licensing the system?
I'm pretty sure most of these are specifically Hasbro properties.
It is, but
yes.
it's not. But WotC aren't releasing these.
Yeah, they're being given to another licensor to release, essentially. And the licensor has clearly not been given the budget to do any more than fit Fifth Ed into this the square pegs of these properties. Like there's clearly no emphasis on development time. What we set up, how do we fix it? And then there's a separate issue that people are. I don't know how. I don't think Fifth Ed really uses the same OGL that caused the 3.5 glut, but there's some method for licensing that is allowing the Stargate and Hellboy games to go through.
I assume it's just the standard. We're doing this under the
SRD, isn't it?
the SRD, but you can't reproduce the PHB. You still have to buy the PHB, and then you can basically go. The following rules change, and that's your system. I assume that's still the system.
Yeah, 5e SRD is a thing. Just looking at it here.
Yeah.
So go nuts. Go.
right,
Apparently,
maybe we
go
should-
nuts.
Sorry, I'd like to apologize to listeners. I had a list of games you should try, and I've been denying myself the ability to say them because I want to convince people, and why would I ever think that would work? But okay, so let's go back to the list.
Take a run at it, yeah.
All right, I would say for My Little Pony, our indie friend Donna recommended a really cool Powered by the Apocalypse game called Epilion, which is based around dragons, but just reads as so My Little Pony to me that I feel like it's a perfect fit. So I would definitely think that is probably where I would go. So that's a Powered by Apocalypse game. It's based around bonds. It's based around having moves that depend on what you're trying to do. It's about fiction. It's about, cute things happening to little baby dragons. I think it's probably the perfect mix there. For something like G.I. Joe, I feel like I would go to Savage Worlds. Although I could definitely be convinced if I found a system with a pretty sweet gear system. I believe, Savage, you mentioned an old 90s favorite called Con-X. I assume, did it have all the cool gadgets?
Yeah, you could kind of get there, but no, I like your suggestion because it's more it very much cleaves to what G.I. Joe was kind of trying to do, or Mask for that matter.
Speaking of Mask, for the Power Rangers game, I would 100% use the Masks game. Again, it's a Powered by the Apocalypse game, but it is laser focused on being a superpowered teen with attitude. Someone whose parents just either anger them or disappoint them. Someone who has so many problems at school or so many problems at the juice bar. And I can't recommend Masks enough for that kind of feel, because like if you tried doing a big crunchy RPG with something like Power Rangers, you'd immediately fall into the problem that, you know, all the Power Rangers have the same powers, which is kung fu and faced someone giant robot. But with Masks, because the playbooks are based around different teenager archetypes as much as there are different superpower archetypes, it just narrows so well is that you pick the playbook that tells the story you want to tell your Power Ranger character, rather than worry about, I guess Red Ranger has the +5 to sword, while I have +5 to laser blaster. You know, I can't think of anything better for that. For Hellboy, as we said, our indie friend Donna recommends Apocalypse Keys, and it does look very BRPD to my mind. I would probably go with Gumshoe to put an emphasis on the, you know, investigation and discovering the monster aspects of it. But again, I keep thinking this in a very BPRD outlook, rather than, you know, being Abe Sapien and the Big Red. For SG1, I might actually go with Stars Without Number, the Traveler basic D&D hybrid that I've reviewed previously. I find it to be very good for having lethal enough combat, even in a hit point system, and skills, which almost always work because they have a bell curve system rather than swingy D20s. But this loves still swingy D20s for combat and for saving throws, so, you know, you're never 100% sure. You're like, it's a system where if you try opening a lock, you're pretty certain that you're going to open that lock, but when you start firing guns, anything could happen, I guess. And I feel that would work for me in a wild SG1 type thing, but, you know, I'm sure other people. I guess I'm not as down on 5th Ed SG1 as I am the others, because I know that there was D20 SG1 based on Spycraft, and it seemed to be popular enough among people I knew that I assumed that it was worth doing something right. Then again, SG1 is sort of in that mold of being a big damn hero from the start, so it sort of survives that transition better. Am I wrong? Maybe it's been a while since
I hear you. I guess SG1's kind of a weird thing anyways, but
well, it's very different if you're doing the SG1 Stargate movie versus SG1 the TV series. True. Or whatever that one where they went to Andromeda was. Oh no, Atlantis, that was it. It was Atlantis, was it Andromeda for some reason. Actually, yeah, the one that is really stumping me is in fact Transformers, and I probably would have to just go with Lancer, to be honest, because I damned if I'm going to attempt to put together Mechton Zeta rules.
Have you read Lancer?
Not cover yet.
Well, I mean, okay. Has anyone glanced over it?
I have, yeah. I've read it a fair bit.
Yeah. What do you think of the setting?
The setting is kind of luxury gay space communism.
I fucking hate it.
It's
I fucking hate it. I've never read anything that wagged its finger at me so goddamn much.
Oh, it definitely does that. It is. It is powered by its own sense of self-satisfaction.
I do like the system.
I really like the system.
Yeah.
The setting itself, I'm not sure exactly what you're doing in some ways in the setting. You're you're there because the players, you know, you're there because you're there, and you know you're going to do stuff, and it tries to set up a situation where effectively having freelance mech jockeys drop in is a good thing, but you're trying to do it. They're trying to create the scenario where rather than being motivated by filthy lucre, you're doing it for sort of, you know, the love of good, but there's no external good factor. It's just what you consider, you know.
I think they watched Starship Troopers and didn't laugh, and they went and wrote this.
Certainly a little bit of that. Like I don't mind what they're trying to say. I think it can become off as a bit preachy. I understand what they're talking. It's about kind of capitalism sucking, and you know you're going to be the sort of the socialist armies without any of the usual baggage that socialist armies have in history. So yeah, we'll see.
You got to take a long view. Guilds sucked,
yeah,
but we didn't use those forever. But the system, yeah, I think for Transformers,
I like the system a lot.
I think you could do it for Transformers. You could have a lot of fun, kind of melding the pilot and mech stuff together and kind of making it all the one thing, and maybe getting it kind of funky and swapping out weapons and stuff every so often.
If I was doing a Transformers RPG, my first thing would be we have to have the transformation is actually critically important in the mechanics of the game.
Macross
in a way that maybe they won't do in 5th Ed. Because it might shift your attack bonus or maybe give you access in different weapons. But if I was doing Lancer, you'd have 2 different modes in your transformed mech, and they should play incredibly differently. Being in car mode versus being in bot mode should be a completely different feel and play, which I think you could do in Lancer, and I'm not sure you would perform as well in 5th Ed, because like even with shape-shifting in 5th Ed is mostly I get some different attacks and I get a new bubble of hit points, which is not really what transforming is like. It would be what I would want in a Transformers RPG is the feeling that when I transform, it's significant, it's an important thing when I transform, and it changes a lot of what's going on. And then does that mean it's rare? And I go, well, it depends on what type of Transformer you are, because you might decide to be a Transformer who's all about switching back and forth really, really quickly, like one of the Quick Changers or the Double Dashers or something like that, where you're going, I'm playing top spin basically, so I'm going to keep transforming, and my whole thing is every turn I'm transforming, and every turn my transforming does something, and basically you'd have triggers on transforming. I would systemize it a lot because I think it's very important to feel different, you know? And for there be reasons to be in bot mode and reasons to be in alt mode. And then later on when you do stuff, there's reasons to be in head mode and reasons to be in body mode, you know?
Well, I'm standing on the shore waving after you voyage off on that shirt. It's like, okay, yeah. That sounds fun.
I think we'll have to come back to the rules of D&D at some point, but yeah, we've already gone on too long. We've I've waffled, Owen's waffled, Mick made some noise at some point. I think we should probably come to a final conclusion. Folks, we don't... Well, okay, Owen hates 5th Ed. I think the rest of us can appreciate it for being useful at what it wants to be, but we don't... I think generally we just don't think that it is the wonderkind that it would claim to be based on its penetration. And just be open to trying new things and seeing what else the thing, and be aware of what your genre needs. Like, just because the system is simple and flows well doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. There's a lot of genres where if you don't have the right level of crunch, it's just not going to feel right. So be open, look out for those recommendations. Don't just assume that these cranky old men waving their sticks are just angry at you for using their oxygen. And maybe we do want you to have fun in the game that you want to play. Savage?
It's still a damn fine dungeon crawler, I think, and I think a lot of people have forgotten that. A lot of D&D should probably just happen between the dungeon entrance, the dungeon exit, and find other things to play other kinds of games.
Owen?
I think if you come ask me, I'll tell you a better RPG. Okay. Or a more suitable RPG.
That's fine. If you have any RPG genres that you'd like us to tell you the perfect RPG with the maximum fun to play it in, or if you would like to send us letter bombs and other perfectly legitimate 2020 ways of expressing your opinion, you can hit us up on our social media. Or come to our Discord. I'm sure we will love all of the wonderful images and things you have to say. But otherwise, for now, this party's over.
Thank you for listening to The Adventuring Party. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can head on over to SpeakPipe and drop us a line. Or you can join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter, or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license, but you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.